Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Joy in Dementia. I'm really looking forward to introducing you to a dear friend of mine, and she's also a mentor that I met at the Certified Senior Advisor Conference a few months ago. And we have been really excited to share this information with you. So Darra is my friend. She is the CEO and founder of My Care Companions. And she's the creator of a super cool tool that we will tell you about at the end. So Darra was also the CFO of HealthWise. If you've heard of that, it's quite a well-known health nonprofit. And she also has over 25 years of personal experience as a family caregiver. And I love the tagline of her company, My Care Companions. It's simplify the business of life. And what I love is, we are full-time working professionals, and we are also usually kind of like the CEO of our parents' information, right? I know some of us end up taking that role, especially if you're an only child, or if you have some siblings that have decided not to be involved, right? And you're just like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I have so many things to organize and to get these documents and to make sure that we're well prepared. And I've definitely touched on these things in some past interviews about the importance of having a power of attorney document, advanced directives, things like that. And Darra has some really great tips and a way that you can put all of that together in a super simplified way. And so I heard her presentation at the conference, and I just knew that we needed to work together, and we also really connected so much on trying to educate fellow long distance daughters and family caregivers in how to make this whole process a lot easier. So Darra, welcome to Joy in Dementia. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here, Laura, and I just am so happy you invited me to chat with you today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so can you tell us, I talked a little bit about your bio, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your expertise? I know that you've had quite a bit of experience being a family caregiver for forgetful parents and forgetful family members. So if you could share a little bit about that.
I would love to. So, like many of your subscribers and your listeners, I have been a caregiver for 25 years or more now. And I never really identified myself as a caregiver. I identified myself as a daughter and as a wife and as a mother, and found myself realizing over a period of time that I have been the caregiver or the lead caregiver for our family for a long time. And over the last 15 years in particular, have had the experience of caring for not one, but actually three different family members that had different types of dementia. As a dementia caregiver, I have cared for three people: my father, my mother-in-law, and my godmother. My father actually suffered with dementia for over 10 years, and I had periods of time where I was primary caregiver, and then ultimately, to get him better services, he moved to be near my brother, but I maintained responsibility for the business and financial and health insurance. And he did live the last 5 years of his life in a care home. My mother-in-law passed quickly following a brief illness. And actually, the discovery of her dementia didn't occur until the final month of her life. And even with all of our experience, we realized we had overlooked some pretty clear signs that she was struggling with dementia. And it explained a lot, I guess, is all that I could say there. And then actually, I'm still participating in the care for my godmother, and much more so as a consultant and advisor. But in this case, she did not have family, and she did not have children, and no living relatives. And so I actually got involved through Adult Protective Services. And they asked me to step in and help ensure that her guardianship and conservatorship was being handled appropriately where she lives. So I've had really a wide range of experiences and hopefully some learnings I can share with your subscribers.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually, I would love to hear what you've learned personally from that experience and how it led you to starting My Care Companions. Because I don't think I mentioned this in the bio, but you also have quite a bit of experience working for Hewlett Packard, which is a very technological business. So,
Sure. My journey led me to where I am today from a crisis in my own family. And when my mother-in-law fell ill unexpectedly, we realized that we did not have the information that we needed to take care of her health needs in the last week of her life. And importantly, we didn't have the documents we needed and the information that we needed to manage her affairs effectively and with ease after she passed, and quite frankly, put things in order for my father-in-law. And the reality of the situation is we were blinded by our own expectation bias. My father-in-law had been ill for 20 years, and with his heart condition, we'd been on death watch. We all expected him to go first. And we were very prepared, or I'll say much more prepared, for him to go. We were not at all prepared for the possibility that she might go first. And we were very blinded by this. And I found myself at the time, I've had 25 years at that time of professional experience. I was successful. I was the CFO of a nonprofit that's pretty well known, as you mentioned. And I was doing super well professionally and prided myself on the fact that if an auditor or a board member walked into my office, I could put my hands on any document, find any piece of information they needed, or know who to ask to get it. And at the exact same time that I'm feeling that way professionally, I'm having this experience with my mother-in-law where I feel like a complete failure. Like I had let something fall through the cracks. And so I really focused on how am I going to solve this for myself. And when I realized the scope of the problem and that I wasn't the only person struggling with this, I realized I could solve it not just for myself, but for a lot of people, a lot of daughters.
I think we have that in common too, Dara. Like that's, we've had. I mean, I have definitely not been a CFO, but I've been in a director position, also at a nonprofit, and I felt like I finally had all of this figured out, right? This career and what I wanted to do, and then this whole dementia thing happened, and I realized that there's so much information. I mean, about dementia in general, about getting a cure, all the things that we still don't know. And I just felt completely helpless as, luckily I was also in the healthcare industry, but that's also why I started Befriended Heart. So what are your recommendations, Dara, for being proactive about making sure that we don't have the same crisis that you did in your family?
Sure. So let me start by highlighting kind of some things I learned along the way. And then I will, based on that, tell you my recommendations. First and foremost, it takes an unbelievable amount of time to manage somebody else's personal affairs. And it's totally underestimated. Research does show, however, that family caregivers, people like you and people like me and people like your listeners, spend an average of 13 hours a month managing the administrative side of care. And this is based on a Gallup study in 2011. And that includes personal and financial and health insurance matters. And what I realized is I wanted to do as much as I could to make that as efficient as possible, because I didn't want to spend 13 hours a month doing that. I wanted to spend 13 hours a month, as much of that, loving on my loved one, right? Not doing the paperwork. So
and it's funny, Dara, that you say it's 13 hours a month, because that feels like so much to us, especially those of us who have full-time jobs, and we're already in a job from Monday to Friday to support ourselves. And then it just feels like we try to fit in that time, but it doesn't feel like that much. And then hearing that amount makes a lot of sense. It's why we feel drained after a weekend, because we're like, we didn't really get a break because we did all of our work and then we did things for our parents. You know what I mean? So,
and you're squeezing it in on lunch hours and in the car while you're driving on speakerphone. And you're finding ways to squeeze it in. But when you add it up, it's a lot of time. And it's time that I want to help you reclaim. I've also learned that in the beginning of a care journey, people often think I can do anything for a short period of time. But as many of your listeners I know have already experienced, family caregiving often is a long time. And the average duration of a family caregiver role is 4 years, with about 24% is more than 5 years, and 15% is more than 10 years. And often caring for someone with dementia is what's driving you in those long-term, long-lived 5, 10, 15 years of care, because you have to take over certain elements of life, but it's not a short duration in every case.
Wow. And what was that data from? Because that's really
that is from an AARP study in 2015. So these are studies where they're really starting to quantify and help us understand truly the burden on the family caregiver and what we need to be thinking about to support the family caregiver. And I think the final one that really came and hit me at home is I have learned that having the right information at the right time and in the right place will save you time, it will save you money, it will save you endless frustration. And depending on the information, it could even save someone's life. And so finding a way to make that possible became my mission and my passion.
Awesome. Wow. And you know that it's going to save you frustration because you went through that frustration yourself. You know what I mean?
A couple of times.
Yeah. With
at least 3. I mean, those are just the ones that had dementia. I could give you more.
Yes. So I'm excited to hear your recommendations.
Perfect. So I would summarize my recommendations in 3 keywords. So permission, information, and imagination. And I know that last one sounds a little funny, but I'm going to explain it in a minute. So the first thing that you need to make sure you have is permission to treat and help. And make sure you have the documents in place to handle the affairs of your loved one if you need to step in. Importantly, that includes the healthcare power of attorney and financial power of attorney, and making sure you get those documents executed while your loved ones still have the capacity to execute them, because it's much more difficult if you've already progressed beyond that point. And I'll say, go ahead.
I just want to add, and I've said this before in my interviews, but I just want to emphasize it. It also gives your forgetful parent a chance to say what they want, and
absolutely
in their dignity, and give them a decision, which they know that they're not going to be able to make many decisions in the future if they have a mild cognitive impairment or dementia diagnosis.
And it ensures that you know what they want. Ask the questions and get into detail on these questions. There are some wonderful tools available to help you through these important conversations. And don't stop those conversations at the checkbox. Get into the level of detail to really understand the preferences for treatment and the preferences for care. I'll say, as an individual, I love HIPAA. I'm really happy that my privacy is being protected, but as a caregiver, it's a real pain. And making sure you have permission and access is critical to your success as a caregiver. So that's permission. The second thing I really encourage you to have and recommendation is information. Make sure you have organized the information that you need, not just around healthcare, but the personal and vital information, the household information, the health information, the financial information, the legal information, and the end-of-life preferences. If you've invested the time to put all of that information together, it will save you a lot of frustration and a lot of anxiety. And so having that information in one place, in my opinion, is well worth the investment. And not just on the forgetful parent you're caring for. We're managing, as CEOs of our family, our whole families. And for example, I have 2 children and a father-in-law I'm still very actively involved in with care, and my husband and I. And for the 5 of us, I have 15 electronic health records I have to manage.
Wow.
And I had to come up with a way to make that easier for me. And no one was going to do that for me. So I found a way to do it for myself.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention too that we are starting to put a lot of things on the cloud, and I think we as sort of the younger generation are more open to that as long as it has enough security and everything that I think we feel good about it. Because I know for me personally, I'm trying to get rid of clutter in my house all the time. And if we can, and with the environment and everything going on, like I really don't want to have to use paper. I don't want to have to use space. I don't have the room, and so I love the idea of having it all in one place. And then, we'll talk about the tool in a little bit, but that's a way of really getting rid of all the paper. You do still need to keep, can you remind me, Darra, which ones you need the originals for, the original documents?
Absolutely. Make sure you have original copies of all of your vital documents. So your birth certificate, marriage certificates, any previous family members' death certificates, social security cards, passports, driver's license. You need to have the originals, but you actually can get pretty far with a copy in a pinch. And then, of course, you need your healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney, and any of your estate planning documents. Preserve the originals and store them in a fire-safe location. But many professionals and many organizations will accept copies of those documents, if not to complete a transaction, to start a transaction.
And when Darra says copies, she doesn't mean the paper copy. That you can
No, I actually mean a digital copy. So to your point, a lot of the world has moved digital and it has gone onto the cloud, but it's gone onto the cloud in a way that is difficult for us to manage. So I go to the cloud and I capture that digital document and I bring it into my own universe, and then I organize my digital documents. So I don't have paper copies of most documents. They're all digital documents, and I only retain paper copies of the ones that I might actually need for a legal process.
And it sounds like from what you said, what you need the original documents for our families, even if we have, kids or, parents that we're taking care of, really all of that could probably go into one binder in a safe. Again, like saves so much space. So I love that idea.
Even one folder. It doesn't even have to be a binder. If you think about it, it's just a single folder with all of those documents. Those are really the ones you need, and everything else can be digitized.
That really appeals to me. And I think just to anticipate questions that I'll get in the comments, what if it sounds like that's a lot of information and it can be overwhelming. And so, I talk to daughters whose parents are very resistant to giving that information right away. And so I'm wondering if we could still find that tool helpful in our own lives.
So I would say without question, that is true. And the reason it's true is you need to organize your own life. And so the more efficient you can be in managing your own household and your own life with digital documents and organized documents, you will capture time back. It might not be where you thought, but you will become more productive. I think the other thing that it really does is it's a magical conversation to have with your loved one when you can go to your caregiving parent and or your forgetful parent and say, Mom and Dad, look what I've done for my family. This is so helpful to me. Can I give you a copy of the key elements that you might need if something happened to me and you needed to help John, my husband in that case, manage the kids and other things? Can I just give you some of this information? It will make me feel so much better to know that you could help him. What do you think? Should we do this for you too? And now all of a sudden, it's not about I'm taking care of you because you can no longer take care of yourself. It's we're taking care of each other because that's what families do. And I really believe that this is critical for all families to expand the conversation and expand access to information. because where you used to be able to access it in an emergency, you can't anymore.
I love that so much because it's much more of a let's do this together type
Absolutely.
feeling versus, and I mean you touched on it completely. I think our parents are so, they get emotional about this type of conversation and this action, right? Because they're sort of thinking that you're thinking way far ahead. But if you say, hey, I actually did this for myself, then they might be more likely to get on board. So I think that's a great point, Tara.
And our parents never want to stop helping us and taking care of us. And so this is a way to reinforce their role in the relationship and give them back some of that control and some of that dignity, and let them know that we value the role that we play and we're partners in care. We haven't switched roles, right? I think it's really important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we talked about permission, making sure that your caregiving parent and the forgetful parent give you permission to be the caregiver, getting through
Mhm.
HIPAA and power of attorney. We talked about information, all of the different things that we need to know. And Dara, too, if you can just talk a little bit about the information that we don't think about. So I think we automatically jump to, and this is what I've talked about in this channel, is legal information, health information, insurance. But can you talk about maybe the little details that you sort of wish you knew in your own family situation that you
Sure.
include in your tool?
So what we've done in the tool is we've really tried to lay out the blueprint of all of the little details of life that you don't even think about. We take for granted so much of life. Things like, what day is trash day? And where do you keep the trash cans? And where is the mailbox key? And where is the water shutoff valve? And, all of these little things. It's not the obvious elements of care where there are resources to help you that make you completely crazy in the end. It's the small details of managing someone else's affairs, the business of life. And it's gotten much more complicated. And my goal truly is to help you simplify the business of your life.
Yes, and I started using this tool as well, and I think it's really great because it asks you questions that I think, Dara, you said it, you sort of take for granted, and you're just like, oh yeah, of course trash day is on Tuesday, and all these things. And so it's actually pretty easy to just type it in, because you know it in your mind. But my mother-in-law won't know those things if something happens to me, and so it's some extra information, but I think it's super helpful. And two, the really cool thing is that Dara has this tool password protected as well. So you can rest assured, and she's worked at HP, so she knows what she's doing as far as security.
I needed to make sure that I was really comfortable with the security, and I maintained control of what I shared, when I shared, and with whom I shared. And so this is as secure or as open as you choose for it to be.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, let's talk about the third recommendation.
Okay. So the third one, I'm going to really encourage imagination. And so with the digital revolution and everything that has happened with information in the cloud, there has been a huge explosion of and digital services that we can and should take advantage of. But we all fall into the trap of doing things the way we've always done them, finding, solutions in the way that have become habit. And so you've really got to step outside of what you're used to and look for the new solution. Imagine the new way to use some of these technologies to save you time. If you are helping to manage your loved one's medications, it's taking you a lot of time, or you are worried that they're not managing their medications exactly correctly, you can use some of the new services either through your pharmacy. Amazon actually has a service. There are multiple services that are no to low cost where they will package those medications in little single serving pouches that will allow your loved one to make sure they're getting the right medications at the right time. I think my other really favorite one about medications is no matter how hard you try, keeping track of all of those final medications, the current ones and what is the dosage and that kind of thing is really challenging. And in my case, I found that I had it dialed in. I knew exactly what it was for my husband, who has a chronic condition that he manages, for my father-in-law, because he has lots of comorbidities. But I found myself sitting in front of my own doctor, and my doctor said to me, "Are you on any new medications?" "Oh, yeah, I am on a new allergy medication." And he said, "Do you know what it's called?" And I literally was saying, "Well, it starts with a P, there's a K in it." And I realized I was so focused on the care of the people in my life who really, we managed very aggressively medications, I hadn't paid attention and managed my own. So we have a new practice, a new habit in our family, that every time we go to the pharmacy, the phone comes out and the camera goes on, and I take a picture of the front and side of the pill bottle, and I put that picture in my phone in a folder for the person. And I then always know exactly what medications are, because that pill bottle has the patient name, the medication name, the dosage of the medication, the doctor who prescribed it, the pharmacy who filled it, how many refills are available, the prescription number, and the phone number to call if you need a refill. I didn't have to write it down. I just snapped a picture. And it's a habit you need to learn for yourself, and you need to train your family.
I love the taking a picture of the medications you're taking, because as you all know, I am in the fertility process right now. So we're going to start the second IVF this month, and I am taking like 20 different pills a day. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm talking to my fertility doctor, and I want to see if those interact, like any supplements I'm taking, I had to sort of copy down an email when I could have just taken a picture, because the doctors just do that. Like, they expect you to know that information right away. And if you don't, they're not going to be able to give you good recommendations or give you a certain, medicine that's going to help you with whatever you have, because they don't know if it's interacting with your current medications, right? So I love that recommendation, and the fact that it is sort of, it's a behavior change, right? Like we're just starting to say, oh my gosh, I can order this on Amazon, which also may not necessarily be a good thing, because I'm getting a lot of boxes now, and I'm like, what did I order? You know what I mean? But definitely, like, for the convenience of trying to get our parents things as soon as possible, I think Amazon is incredibly helpful.
Well, particularly for a long distance daughter, right? Knowing that you can get that to them before you can get to them, right? Which is really brought me a lot of peace of mind. And you did mention one thing that I want to really reinforce. When you take pictures of those pill bottles, make sure you get your over-the-counter medications and your supplements as well, because the medication interactions and challenges that can come forward aren't limited to prescribed medications. But it's super easy. It's 5 minutes. You walk to your medicine cabinet and you just snap pictures, and then you've got everything you need wherever you are, literally in the palm of your hand.
Totally. And I think it's really great that you mentioned that Amazon was essential for long distance daughters, especially if you need to get your parents a supply that whether you're across the country or, wherever you live. And so, speaking of that, Darra, what can you say for daughters, long distance daughters, that feel like they have no time to devote to these recommendations?
So I would say that, like anything, a bit of investment can save you a lot of time in the long run. And it may feel like, how can I possibly find the hour or 2 hours to gather that information together? But I really encourage you to think about, if you do it once and you have it in the place where you need it, how much time it could save you in the long run. And the savings will start to snowball. So I encourage you to think about what you need to know and what is the most frustrating, challenging, anxiety-producing element in your life. And whether it's for yourself, maybe it's organizing your own household, or maybe it is trying to get information for your loved one. But just start with that element that is the most challenging. and focus there and get that organized. And find a tool, a system, whether it's mine or somebody else's, a notebook. Just find something and get started. And start in the part that is most challenging for you, and only do as much as it brings you benefit. Don't feel compelled that you have to complete somebody's process or complete somebody's tool. Make it your own and do the part that is going to save you time.
Awesome. Awesome. And so if you had to sum up this interview in one takeaway point for long distance caregiving daughters, what would it be? Because those are three really great recommendations.
So I'm going to go back to what brought me into this business in the first place. And I'm going to encourage all of you to really look hard and make sure you know what your backup plan is. It is very easy to get blinded by expectation bias. You're all actively caring for a forgetful parent. You're reliant on a primary caregiver, perhaps, or you might be a primary caregiver in some ways. And make sure you understand what the plan would be if something happened to that primary caregiver. The backup crew know what they needed to do and the information they needed to help the person who now has an emergency, but importantly, to continue to manage the care of your forgetful parent. Because we get very focused on caring for the loved one that is in crisis or who needs care. And depending on the study, but there is one study that I have seen that as many as 30% of family caregivers actually die before the person they're caring for does. And there's lots of reasons for this. Some of it is the unexpected does happen, and you can't always anticipate what will happen. And some of it is there is a huge burden and a cost on the health and the well-being of a caregiver. And so there's all kinds of reasons for it. And some of it's just aging. We age together and then something happens. But we can't plan for what we think will happen. We need to make sure we're ready for whatever might happen. So make sure you have a backup plan.
Absolutely. That's such great advice. And I think too, Alzheimer's Association just came out with their 2019 report, and they found that caregivers of people with dementia experience, I think it's like 4 or 5 times more stress than the average caregiver for any other condition, because dementia is so all encompassing. It's physical, it's mental, it's emotional. You're not just caring for one aspect of like physical, right? You're also with the emotional and the mental. So it's really astounding how much stress it gives you. And so that's why I love that Darra has found a way to save us time. And then of course, money is also an aspect, because a lot of caregiving is not covered by Medicare. And so any money that we can save is super helpful. And so Darra, speaking of which, I think you have an offer for us.
I do. So when I wasn't able to find a family information management solution or tool that was complete, secure, portable, easy to use, easy to share, and affordable, I'm sure that resonates with all of you, I ended up creating one. And when I realized how helpful it was for me and for the families I was helping in my consulting practice, I realized that it could be really helpful. So what we have today is called My Data Diary Plus, and it is a database that is password protected and secure. It's delivered to you on a USB drive that I encourage you to keep on your keychain, so you have your information with you whenever you need it, wherever you are. And for your listeners, we are offering a 15% discount using Joy in Dementia 15 as the discount code. And it's a one-time purchase price of only $50. You own the tool, you own the software, and you can use that software tool to help you manage your life.
Which is so awesome, because I've checked out the first version of the Data Diary, and I love how everything is together. just go to different tabs and exactly what you need. And I sort of felt like, oh my gosh, this is so much information, and it's definitely not going to take you a day. Like, it will take longer than that. But the thing that I like so much about it is that it saves your information so easily, and then you can just go back and just keep adding to it. You're not in a rush to like put it all in there for one day. But I think it's awesome too, because as Darra mentioned, I'm doing this for my husband and I. My parents have the documents and everything, and so I kind of want to do it on my own first before I introduce it for my family, seeing how it's been beneficial, and then sharing that then with my mom. So yeah, I just love how user friendly it is. And when Darra showed it to me at the conference, I just got really excited about it, because it's sort of hard to keep track of like, what are all the things that we need. And so I have found it super helpful. I'm really excited to try out the second version too, which is the one that we have the discount code for. I will actually do a live video where I'm just reviewing that Data Diary Plus. If you are in a rush to get it, it's definitely the best version that Darra has. We're getting you a really good price for that. So,
well, and I think the other thing that you and I have talked about is this new version of the tool. I know you played with my original one, which was a spreadsheet based. This new version is a database that allows you to grow and expand and change as a family. So it is really flexible and allows you to capture all of your information for your household.
I will again do a video and tell you all what I thought. And Darra, thank you so much for joining me. Where can our viewers find you if they want to contact you?
Well, if you are interested in the software tool and learning more about that, you can find information at mydatadiary.com. And if you'd like to take a look at the caregiving resources and information that we provide through the rest of the consulting practice and my blog, you can find that at mycarecompanions.com. And my gratitude to you, Laura, for inviting me today to share this information with you and with your community.
Absolutely. And everyone, I will put the links down for Darra below in the description. So thank you, Darra, and thank you all for tuning in for another interview, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Have a great day.